Picture this. You're an aspiring writer, and you want to get better at writing. So you've written up a draft, and you think it's pretty good enough to share with another person, in fact. So you send the draft to someone else, who looks it over, and they come back with the critique, show, don't tell. Now you might ask them, what does that mean? And for the critic, they might not always have the right answer for you. People are subjective in what they enjoy, and it could be anything from the person not enjoying how you described things, to clunky dialogue, to just being too simple. It could also be that you showed and not told, but the critic, misunderstanding what show not tell really means, interpreted something that they disliked about your story as telling. And one might think the solution is to just add a bunch of detail to everything, but then you run into the risk of bogging down the pacing of your story, or losing the message within a tangled mess of description. What could be accomplished within a few words could instead be inflated to a paragraph of unnecessary detail because you, as a writer, are attempting to avoid telling your audience anything. This is something that I struggled with myself when I first began writing. This is why I believe that show not tell is a relatively useless and in some cases harmful critique, especially to a new writer. It's a default phrase that everyone says when asked to critique somebody else's writing, but not every critic fully understands the meaning of it. It's like telling an artist, study more fundamentals or practice drawing realistic things. It doesn't really point out any particular core issue with the art itself, it more so just says to the artist, just do better, without any guidance as to how or why. In a lot of cases, the artist has already studied the fundamentals, and practicing realism will not help them with things such as stylization, composition, or line confidence. When someone says, show, don't tell, I believe what I'm meant to glean is that I have not done enough description of a piece, but at the same time, I feel describing things any more than I already have would ruin the pacing of a certain scene. Sometimes it is better to just tell the audience things rather than waste time and energy figuring out how to show it to them instead. Telling the audience something is inherently easier for the audience to understand, after all. So when telling is sufficient for getting your point across, it is not always necessary to show it, even if perhaps the writing might be better for it. A story which shows everything is also a story which takes a lot more energy and time to write. We would not tell an artist to render every single sketch they make, or spend tens of hundreds of hours on every single art piece they create. Sometimes leaving parts of your art unfinished and choosing your battles is a part of being a good artist, and this is true for writing just as much as visual art. A story which shows everything is also far more subjective with its interpretations. I could say, Jimmy threw an apple at the wall, and leave it to interpretation. Or I could say, Jimmy threw an apple at the wall because he was angry. In the second version of the sentence, I'm directly telling the audience how Jimmy is feeling. I have successfully conveyed my message. Of course, it would also be better for me to say, Jimmy grit his teeth, picking up the apple and chucking it at the wall as if it were every bully that had tormented him in the past few years. And yet, even though in that last one I have shown that Jimmy is angry without expressly telling you, I have also simultaneously told the audience about their bullies. Sometimes, when you're showing things properly, you need to mix in tell and show at the same time to be the most efficient with your space. And while the last sentence certainly reads a lot better than the previous two and immerses the reader more, it is also more words. I feel that sometimes writers can get lost with how to properly show something. The question you must answer as a writer is whether or not it is necessary to show something or if telling is sufficient. If it is easier to show something, then do so. If not, then move on. You'll learn far more in writing when you move yourself forward through a story and keep notes than you ever will obsessing over a single sentence on a page. On that note, I think that telling is absolutely necessary when it comes to a rough draft, or any type of outline for that matter. A lot of writers will often attempt to skip straight to the showing part, only to get tangled in metaphors and description, and all the while not truly knowing what they want to say in the first place. There's a concept of simplifying your work down to its most basic parts. It's the reason writers must outline their stories in the first place, and why artists must also draw sketches. I feel that telling is a part of that sketch process and should not be done away with. It serves a purpose, but many critics will give you the false impression that it has no function whatsoever and should never be used. If I don't know what I want to tell the audience, how can I even begin to show it to them? That's why show not tell is such a bad critique. It purports that show is superior and replaces tell, when in reality, telling is just as much of a tool for you as a writer to use as showing is. They're not competing with one another. Instead, they're two halves of a single process. Practice failure and use it to get better. Remember that feedback is always important, but it's not always useful. Everything is a tool for a writer, even mistakes, so long as they are made with intention. Anticipate failure, look forward to it, and it will be your greatest teacher. And in the famous words of Ernest Hemingway, we are all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master. Hey, thanks for watching the video. My goal with this channel is to develop a community of creatives who share their content, inspire each other, and improve themselves. So with that being said, tell me in the comments section below what you're working on or what you'd like to do in the future. Also, let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos. If you want to see how good of a writer I am, I promise you I'm not amazing, you can check out my web novel for free over on Royal Road. Links are in the description below. I'd love to have some feedback on it since it's currently in the drafting phase, so let me know what you think. And if you want to support me, then share these videos with anyone you can over on Discord, Twitter, wherever. And make sure you're subscribed. It really helps and it lets me know that you guys enjoyed the content. Anyways, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.